Welcome to the third round of the Paris Rapid&Blitz Grand Chess Tour 2021. This tournament is being held between the 16th to the 22nd of June 2021 and subtracted 10 Elite Grandmasters. I mentioned that in the earlier video where I named all the 10 Grandmasters. In this round 3 game, I want to look at the game between Fabio Caruana and GM Vachier Lagrave Maxime, commonly known as MVL. In this game, Fabio had the white pieces and MVL had the black pieces. Remember, MVL is the #1 grandmaster in France, and Fabio is the #1 American grandmaster, who happens to be second in the world rankings as well. So, Fabio with the white pieces started the game with d4, knight f6. We had knight f3, g3. Now, this is more like the East Indian defense that is being played by MVL, but would soon transform into the Grunfeld. We had knight c3, d5, bishop f4. We have bishop g7, e3, and black castles the king side. We have bishop e2, and it's out of this move that we now have the queen's pawn game, the barrier attack, which is versing the Grunfeld variation as of move 6. The opening is so defined here. We have bishop g4, knight e5, and bishop captures on e2. Queen captures back on e2. We have c5, and it's of this move that Caruana decided to do the long castle on the queen side. We had knight c6, h4 by Fabio. MVL captures on d4, e recaptures back on d4. We had rook c8, and the first mistake by Fabio happened, which is more like a sideline, but not so much. This hands the advantage to black, small advantages, 10 advantages, 0.6, lead minus 0.6 to MVL. So he played h5. I think let's take it back. Best would have been f3, more the way you would play a game in the Samish. But f3 was never played, and perhaps you would have queen b6 to try and attack the queen side where the king has castled. That was not played though. So we had h5. We then had a knight b4, which is a blunder by MVL. This gives the advantage to Caruana, and this is a 3-point lead. Caruana could have played a better move, but he again played another mistake by having h capturing on g6. Best would have been knight capturing on h5 rather than playing knight b4, and maybe the bishop would draw back. Fabio was allowed to pick on h, have the h pawn pick on g6, which is a mistake. At least best would have been as well, if we can take it back, best would have been rook capturing on c2. You sack an exchange, you like sack the knight, and this would continue this way. Here you still maintain your advantage. You have the king side weakened, but also the queen side for Fabio, where the king resides, is weakened as well. So you have queen e3. The game would continue that one. This is okay for Fabio. However, he did not play that. After he played h capturing on g6, we had f capturing back, and the game continued. We then had knight d3, which is an inaccuracy. Best would have been a3 to evict that knight. That wasn't played though, so we had knight d3 to challenge the knight on b4. We had knight capturing on d4, and then rook recaptures back, which is an inaccuracy as well, but it's worth playing. We then had queen d7, which is an inaccuracy. Knight e4 was better if you can take that back. We have here knight e4 was a much better move, but that was never played anyway. So after queen d7, we had bishop e5, knight g4 to try and take out this bishop right here. It's being forked by the knight. So, and at the same time, the fianchetto bishop is looking at it as well. So we had bishop back to g3, knight h6 now. That's another inaccuracy. Best would have been knight f6, but that wasn't played. So we had knight h6, king b1. We then had rook c6, which is another inaccuracy. Best would have been b5. If you do play b5, that's a much better move than you attacking the king's residency. That wasn't played though. So we had rook c6, queen d2, knight f7, and we had bishop f4. Now this move reduces white's advantage. Best would have been bishop e5, and perhaps the game would continue this way. You take out the fianchetto bishop and play a comfortable game for white. This is substantial advantage, about 1.5 point lead for Fabio. Perhaps the game would continue that way, but that wasn't the case. So after bishop f4, we then had knight d6, bishop times d6. We had rook capturing back on d6. Now f3 is on the board. We had queen f5, g3 to try and attack on the king side. We had e6, f3. We had rook c6, knight e2. Now what this move does is you don't want to keep the knight here because it could easily be sacked by the rook. The guy can sack the exchange just to disorganize you. Rook f to c8, piling on the semi-open file. This file right here, f2 is kind of vulnerable. We had c3. We had rather c3, not c2 was kind of vulnerable, so it had to be pushed to c3. We have b5, g4 to evict the queen. Queen back to f7. We then had f4, f5. Everyone is attacking. Then we have the rooks piling. So we had rook d to h3. We had h6 since h7 was vulnerable. Queen d3, b4. We had a capturing b4, a capturing b4, and then rook captures on h5. We had a, b capturing on c3, and now knight captured back on c3. That's an inaccuracy. Best in this position would have been queen capturing on g6. That would be a very good move, so that the game perhaps would continue this way. This would be an okay game, and it would be drawish at this point. However, we had so we have after knight capturing on c3, we then had bishop capturing on h6, rook recaptures on h6. We had king g7. Fabio then plays queen h3. He says the best square for this rook It's right on h6, so you just have to protect it, and anytime it would be, pinning the queen. So that way we had queen capturing on f4. We then had a check on rook h7. We have king f8, rook h8 check, king e7, rook h7 check, king d8, rook g7. We had queen f8. This seems to be, we had rook g6, we had rook capturing on g6, king c7. We had g5, king b7, and then rook capturing on e6. Rook recaptures back on e6, and the queen recaptures e6. We have queen f1 check, king moves to c2, queen f2 check, king b3. We have a queen capturing on d4. We then had queen d7 check, king b8, then queen b5, king a7, queen d7 check, and this is more of a perpetual. King b8, queen b5 check, king a7, queen d7 check, king b8, and the game was declared into a draw. Such an interesting game. All players were a bit conscious, not giving away so many advantages, but was such a good game for round 3 and worth looking at, in as much as the result was a draw. We now wait for round 4, which will come on day 2 of this Paris Rapid&Blitz Grand Chess Tour, which is tomorrow. I'll be going through all the other games, and please subscribe to my channel just so you can be able to watch all the other games. Thank you.